to kind of follow along. And, so the handout, so there's the endocrine 1 and 2, but then I also uploaded a few days ago the endocrine handout called New Endocrine Handout. So that's the one that we'll be going through. The other two are they're similar, but there's still kind of some differences. So.
Well, I don't even know if I have the right ones. Well, that doesn't look like
I
either
always
one that I
believe that
have, so
like
I'm guessing yes.
endocrinologists are like the smartest of all. Like all the different specialty doctors that have specialized. Just because, like, you know, I wonder why does my body do this? Why am I? A lot of times the answer is it has to do with hormones, and so just like we saw with the you know, luteinizing hormone and GnRH, and we're going to see that right now again, all that stuff again. So shall we start? Okay, so so we have intercellular communication, which means from cell to cell, which maintains homeostasis, mostly accomplished through chemical messages. The envelope, the letter that's sent is sent through a chemical. Distant communication is coordinated by endocrine and nervous systems, and local too. There's also, we call it endocrine. Nervous system is faster. Endocrine, you make a chemical. Let's say your pituitary gland makes a chemical. You dump it into the blood. Well, it takes time for the blood to get to into the interstitial fluids, the particular whatever gland, the adrenal gland or the kidneys or whatever have you. So nervous, obviously, it's instantaneous, right? Pretty much in an instant. You know, pick up whatever, kick a soccer ball or whatever. It's instant. Endocrine system is slower, releases hormones into the bloodstream. Target cell. Target cell is the cell that the message is being sent to. It's called a target cell. So you have like a releasing cell or an endocrine cell, and then you have a target cell, which is the cell that will receive that the message, the hormone. Both of them rely on the release of chemicals that bind to specific receptors on target cells. You know, you got the the neuron, you know, that looks like this, whatever, I mean, wherever this thing's going, and it has, remember, it has like the vesicles, and it releases chemicals, right? I mean, that's might be short distance, but it's still it's still used as a chemical, like acetylcholine. And they both share chemicals, like they both, like both the nervous and endocrine, they both use epinephrine and norepinephrine. So they're called hormones when released from. So these two particular ones, not all chemical. These two, epinephrine, norepinephrine, are called hormones when they're released from the adrenal medulla, but then they're called neurotransmitters even though it's the same chemical. When they're released across a synapse. Both are regulated by negative feedback. When the area floods, then it sends a signal back. Okay, you can stop now. And both coordinate and regulate activities of other tissues, cells, organs, just like the follicular cycle, the ovarian cycle, that kind of thing. Okay, so far, list 4 similarities between the nervous and the endocrine. They both use chemicals, that kind of thing. So we'll go through that. They both use epinephrine or epinephrine. The endocrine system consists of secretory cells, glands, cells that are glandular. We also have local hormones like prostaglandins. We'll talk about what the heck those are. And what is a hormone? Chemical messenger, released by one tissue, transported by the bloodstream, and will eventually reach a target cell. And so we're gonna talk in detail. Once we kind of do like the overview of kind of like how things work, then we'll go from we'll do tissue by tissue or whatever, gland by gland, organ by organ, and go through all these. And then I'll just expect you to like, okay, well, when there's this stimulus, when there's an increase in calcium, which cells pick up the information, which ones receive the information, or what gland, the thyroid, and then what chemical do they release, which hormone do they release, and those ones, those chemicals are dumped to the bloodstream. Which tissue does it target? Blah blah blah, that kind of thing. You made it. So you got the hypothalamus, you got the pituitary, pineal, parathyroid, and thyroid. Heart, you even have fat. The adrenal glands, those little triangle things of the kidneys, and you have the kidneys too. The kidneys receive, but they're still. And pancreas, the gonads. So we'll go through all this stuff. Okay. So in here I've organized this thing by structure. What do each of these hormones look like? And there's a few reasons how this. There's a few things. There's actually many things how this can be helpful to you. You see how these guys, all these hormones here, these are like single subunit, protein subunits, amino acids. They're amines. They're actually amines. They're amino acid derivatives. Okay, epinephrine. They're small, you guys.
Is that what amines mean?
Yeah, they're fairly small. They're fairly small. Okay, they're definitely the smallest. Maybe not these down here, but they're the smallest. Okay, you got thyroxine. These three are thyroid hormones. You have melatonin, epinephrine. Then you have peptides, which are 50, like less than 50 amino acids long, and the glands that release these kind of hormones are the hypothalamus, pituitary, and pancreas. You guys have seen these already, some of these already, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have gonadotropin releasing hormone, you have follicular stimulant hormone, luteinizing hormone, those three, oxytocin, there it is.
What?
Those, so there's,
FSH, LH, GH.
yep, GnRH.
What's PRL?
Prolactin, releasing prolactin, yep. There's oxytocin, there's ADH. So yeah, there's a whole bunch. Then we got proteins, and then you have lipid, steroid kinda. You guys remember from biology, the 4 fused rings, steroid. Anyway, they're all lipids, they all belong to lipids. And then eicosanoids are also lipid. Purines and then nitric oxide is kind of by itself. The handout. So then you can, as we go through, you can circle which ones. There's a reason why I organized them like this, so that you can circle which ones need a second messenger or can get through the membrane I'll explain that in just a second, but kind of keep that up. So this, I didn't write this handout, this is, Pearson or whatever. So I added a couple, so there's more things. So this handout doesn't mention purines or nitric oxide, or actually it does mention parathyroid hormone, but it doesn't say that I don't know if it says that it's a protein, but anyway, so I'm trying to just give you like the whole picture, like kind of everything that you possibly, that exists in the human body, so. Okay, amino acid derivatives. Peptide and protein. These guys are water soluble. They're water soluble. Okay? These are all water soluble. These guys are not hydrophilic, but hydrophobic. These are hydrophobic.
So number 3.
So your steroids and your eicosanoids, those are hydrophobic.
How do you say that?
Eicosanoids. They come from arachidonic acid. It looks like a spider, the shape of it, and then there's a whole bunch. There's like a whole slew. We can actually convert a whole like this acid into like a whole bunch of different hormones. Yeah, some of them are, and I actually listed them. You guys see where it says in our table there, prostaglandins? I think I put it in there. So prostaglandins here, and actually prostacyclins and thromboxanes are actually prostaglandins. These two are actually these, and then there's prostaglandins like ED, EFG. There's like just like a whole class of these guys. Anyway, these guys are all derived from this arachidonic acid. I don't even care that if you remember that, but I do want you to know that they belong to the eicosanoids kind of family. All right, moving on. We're gonna come back to this stuff, but I'm trying to get to why we care that it's hydrophobic or hydrophilic. Let's do this guy. Hormones alter operations of the target cell. The message to tell the target cell, hey, keep doing what you're doing, or do it faster, or stop what you're doing, or make this, or make this. Start making these lipids, start making these proteins. Okay? They change the types, the activities, locations, quantities. Sensitivity of the target cell to hormone depends on the presence or absence of receptors for that hormone. So you got, here's your receptors here. Here's your ligands out here, okay? Your hormone. The generic term is ligand. Ligand is the. Okay, so here's your ligands. Here's a couple of cells with a bunch of receptors that happen to be the same shape. So this you would call these target cells. Okay, these would be target cells. Which of these two is more sensitive to that particular ligand? The one on the left, the one with more receptors. It's more sensitive. It's more sensitive. This is what we mean. How is it more sensitive? Because it can respond more. Because there's more receptors. Sensitivity depends. There's actually a whole bunch of things that can increase its sensitivity. One of them is receptors. Okay? This is the big one that we'll focus on. The blood, you guys, there's 50 hormones floating in our body right now, in our blood. And if every cell could respond to every hormone, every cell would go out of its mind. You got circles, you got triangles, you got ovals, you got parallelograms, I don't know what all the shapes are, okay? And, but this cell, this one can only respond to, there, I just changed it. It can only respond to two hormones. The triangle and the circle. Remember, you guys, just like with blood? It's the same deal. It's receptors. So we don't have to worry about dumping particular chemicals into the blood. Why? Because the target cells can only respond to particular ones. So instead of saying, okay, I can only send one message right now. No, you could send a whole bunch of them, because the target cells themselves will only respond to the right ones, because they have the receptor for that particular ligand. So far so good, you guys? Make sense? Okay. Little dry, but then it'll get interesting once we get to the actual organs. Okay. Receptors are located either on the plasma membrane or inside the cell. Either on the outside of the cell. And if you guys remember, what do the plasma membranes look like? Actually, more like this. You guys remember?
Phosphate
Huh?
bilayer, phosphate bilayer.
Exactly. Exactly. You remembered.
Yeah, and so that's important for
Phospholipid bilayer. You got what out here? What do we call this? This is hydro.
So like hydrophobic things are not gonna be
Philic.
like that.
Hydrophilic.
Yeah.
This is an extracellular, right? Interstitial, and then
Yeah.
intracellular is also hydrophilic. It likes water because this head is hydrophilic. But most of the plasma membrane is fatty. That's the lipid part. So this is your hydrophobic part. That's how you make them. That's how we're waterproof. This is hydrophobic.
Like because ducks have a little bit of oil on their feathers.
They can float.
Yeah, the water rolls off their back.
You know you know why they do that? They stick their beak back.
See backwards?
They push on a gland,
Oh.
and then they go like this or whatever, and then the oil like spreads out. That's why they're always pushing back. You guys know what I mean? I'm trying to describe
They're
it.
grooming themselves.
They're always going like this. They're always
Yeah.
like gnawing. It seems like gnawing on their back. They're pushed on a oil gland that gets secreted, and then
That is cool. Yeah.
Okay, you guys got that?
That's what I think when I think of hydrophobic. I think of like the oil on the feathers and it
Mhm.
pushes the water off of the duck's feathers so they can stay afloat.
Here, see here, we got endocrine cell releasing hormone. There it is. Got any receptors here? If receptors are not present, no bonding occurs, no activity change in the cellular activity. Okay. However, here on the skeletal muscle tissue, we happen to have same shape, and this message will tell this cell to change something. Hormones are messenger, but we don't got to worry about the particular message hitting or reaching every single cell and screwing everything up, because each cell has only certain particular messages. Required for plasma membrane. Okay, so now we're talking about plasma membrane on the surface of the cell. These are required for hormones that are not lipid soluble. Your amino acid derivatives, your peptide, your protein, all those guys are, because they're hydrophilic, they can't get into, water soluble, they can't get into the cell to tell, let's say, the nucleus, the DNA to change. You guys remember transcription, translation from Gen Bio? To tell the cell to start making something. They can't get in. They need another messenger. So they are a messenger themselves. They're a messenger themselves, but then they need another messenger to send a message from the cell itself to the inside of the cell.
So it like jumps on the back of something that will go through, kind of like if you want to add a weird law, you tack it on to like a bill that will get passed.
Sure. So those three, hydro what? They're hydrophilic, therefore they need another messenger, and those are called secondary messengers. These guys, these hydrophilic amino acids, those guys required for hormones that are not lipid soluble. For example, epinephrine, blah blah blah. There they are, you guys.
Which one?
Wait, why is icosanoids there? Hold on a second.
Because you didn't write this and you would have wrote it correctly.
Well, it's not required. Okay, so your lipid soluble
Yeah, that's the lipid.
ones. All these hormones, guys. We do have receptors on the surface of the cell, even like lipid ones, lipid hormones, lipid hormone receptors. But they can also get through. They can get through if they want to, but we also have. So that's why these are here, but they're not required. These ones are not necessarily required. Okay, you guys got it. But these were lipid derivatives. Okay, fat derivative. So what I'm saying is, if you have a receptor here, most likely it's going to be hydrophilic, but they could be hydrophobic. All right. Hormones cannot diffuse these
water soluble hormones cannot diffuse.
Water soluble, hydrophilic water soluble, they cannot diffuse through the plasma membrane. They must use a receptor on the outside of the membrane. The effect is not direct because they can't get through. So they need another message, another messenger to send a message. Those guys are called second messengers. And therefore, the water soluble end up becoming first messengers because there needs to be a second message. So you guys got that? So if we go back to this
You
thing,
grab the second messenger to turn the original first messenger into a second messenger.
these
That's super like.
yeah. So these three, because these three are.
I'm gonna get it. It's like two negatives making a positive.
Sean was the one to missed.
So, okay, what was I saying? So because these three are, because they're hydrophilic, and they need another messenger to send a message on to the inside of the cell. They reach the outside of the cell, but then they need another message to be sent from the outside cell to the inside. These guys end up becoming first messengers, primary. What was the first messengers? These end up becoming first. Okay, because they bind to the
second messenger again.
because they can't get through the plasma membrane. Yes, water soluble. And then that, which means that these lipid guys, they end up just staying first. They're just regular hormones. They just end up staying regular messengers first, if you want to call them, or just okay. You guys kind of got that so far? Make sense? Okay. Okay. Action. So with these guys, you got a receptor, and then on the inside of the cell, bound to it, you likely have some kind of protein, like a G protein, and then we'll keep going. We'll keep going from there. Small number of hormone molecules can activate thousands of second messengers. This is a process called amplification, and it magnifies the effect of the cell. Here are your three. There's many second messengers. These are the most common. You have cyclic AMP, you small lowercase c, capital AMP, cyclic AMP. calcium. You guys remember, kind of like at the end of nervous, oh, that was a long time ago. How the action potential, but then those vesicles wouldn't actually be released from the synaptic bulb without calcium first entering and telling the vesicles to merge. And anyway, calcium, another second messenger, and cyclic GMP. They're just derivatives of ATP, by the way.
All three of those?
Well, these two. Analate and guanylate. Let's. What does this amplification thing mean? Look at this. So on that, I think endocrine 1 handout. Here I have it pulled up here. Let's say you just have one here. This is signal transduction cascade greatly amplifies the signal. The longer the cascade, the greater the degree of signal. This is an example of epinephrine. Okay, so let's say we just have one single hormone, one single molecule, epinephrine, reaching the plasma membrane. Okay, it binds, causes a conformational change, and on the inside here you have a little G protein, and it activates a protein called the protein called G protein. It goes from inactive to active, and once you've activated that protein, it can convert inactive adenylyl cyclase to active adenylyl cyclase. Once this, it's an enzyme. This enzyme can then convert ATP, remember ATP? ATP to cyclic AMP, and cyclic AMP was our second messenger. This guy will then travel and find another enzyme called kinase. So we have these kinases and activate a particular kinase. This one happens to be protein kinase A to active protein kinase A. What does that do? It phosphorylates proteins. When you stick a ATP, adenosine triphosphate, there's 3 phosphates on this adenosine molecule. Every time you stick a phosphate onto a molecule, you've changed the function of that protein or that molecule. So you can phosphorylate, or you could rip one off, and it's called dephosphorylation. So doing this turns things on and off, which is what this thing is trying to do. However, it's not a 1-to-1-to-1-to-1-to-1 ratio. It's not like, okay, all this I was able to convert. I was able to convert one glycogen molecule to glucose 1-phosphate. No, actually, one of these, with every step involved here, this cascade, with every step, you multiply by itself. So you go from one molecule. This one molecule activates 100 G proteins, which activates 1,000, and then 10,000, and 1,000,000, and 1,000,000,000, gajillion, whatever 10 to the 8 is. And that's just with one single molecule. You got 50 receptors on a cell. Imagine 50 times. You see? Okay, so that's what we mean by amplification. So far, so good, you guys? I hope I'm putting you to sleep. Rob, you doing back there? All right. Cyclic AMP, calcium, and cyclic GMP. Those are your three big puppies. Here again, cyclic AMP activates G protein, which activates this enzyme called adenylate cyclase, which converts ATP to cyclic AMP, which is that second messenger, which activates kinase, and those enzymes are able to phosphorylate proteins, which attaches a phosphate group to another molecule called phosphorylation, and the effect on the target cell depends on the nature of the protein affected. This is what the endocrine system does. It turns things on and off. It makes cells. It makes cells continue to do whatever they're doing. It makes cells do something different, or it could make cells stop what they're doing. It could make cells do something faster. Thyroid. Anybody have know anyone with like a thyroid issue?
Mhm.
Thyroid? Wow, like five of you, 6 of you raised your hands. Slow thyroid or fast thyroid?
Hyper.
Slow.
Hyper?
Yeah,
Hyper. In your friend or your loved one or whatever, they shrunk, right? They shrunk. That's because those T3, those T4, thyroid, they when they reach all your body cells, it tells all your body cells to it actually increases the production of mitochondrial enzymes, and basically makes the cells work faster. Basically, you're just like wasting energy. It makes them like less efficient. It's just wasting energy, so you end up like shrinking. And so there you go. This, right? So hey, make. It goes tells the DNA, hey, start making a whole bunch of enzymes, and in the mitochondria, make a whole bunch of mitochondria. You start consuming energy. Or it could be the opposite. If you have the opposite.
Like Okinawa. My friend has it, and it's Okinawa's.
Hashimoto's?
Yeah, starts with an O. Yeah, that
Which
one.
is-
An autoimmune disease.
Yeah.
Oh, she told me it was thyroid.
It is. It's a
Okay.
thyroid.
And is that the opposite
Slow.
then?
It's hypo
Hypo.
slow.
Yeah.
You
It-
do?
The Hashimoto's,
Yeah.
You do?
And
Oh.
I have Graves' disease, which is the hyper. I just went into remission finally after like 5 years.
What is it called?
Hyperthyroidism, which
Oh.
is the autoimmune disease of Graves' disease.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. There you
How
go.
did
So,
you guys find out that you had these thyroid?
I had a 4-year.
Oh.
Yeah. And I just couldn't even open like a 2-liter bottle. I was so weak. I gained a lot of weight, which sucked. But yeah, it was awesome. But no. It sucked a lot. I had a really fast heart rate, and yeah, it's not fun.
I have a cousin. He was like very large, and then I see him one day. The next day I see him again. I heard, he's in Minnesota. I see him again, and he was like string bean, like